Chosen one, they thought your silence meant defeat. They thought your disappearance meant weakness. They thought the storms finally broke you, that the pain finally buried your spirit, that the nights of tears, betrayal, rejection, and loneliness had finally erased the fire God placed inside you. But they were wrong. Because while the world believed you were falling apart, heaven was rebuilding you in secret. There was a season where nobody saw your battles. Nobody heard the prayers you whispered through trembling lips. Nobody understood the warfare happening around your soul. Every door closed, every hand let go, every familiar voice became distant, and for a moment, even you questioned whether God had abandoned you. But listen carefully, chosen one, God was never absent. He was preparing something terrifyingly powerful. You were being forged in isolation, broken, then rebuilt, crushed, then transformed. You thought the fire was there to destroy you, but it was there to purify you. The enemy celebrated too early because he mistook your hidden season for your ending. But heaven knew the truth. You were about to return stronger than ever before. And now something has changed. Your eyes carry wisdom pain could not kill. Your spirit walks with authority darkness cannot touch. Your silence is no longer weakness, it is power under control. People can feel it when you enter a room now. There is something different about your energy, different about your presence, different about your spirit. Because suffering introduced you to a version of yourself the world has never seen before. Chosen one, this comeback is not normal. This is spiritual resurrection. And the people who laughed at your downfall are about to witness what happens when God places his hand upon someone the world tried to destroy. Stay with me until the end, because this message was not sent by accident. If this video found you today, it is because heaven needed to remind you who you truly are. And before we begin, subscribe, like this video, and type, "I returned stronger through God" in the comments, because your comeback season has officially begun. Chosen one, do you know why God pulled you away from everyone? Do you know why the people you once trusted suddenly became distant, cold, or completely disappeared from your life without warning? At first, you thought you were being rejected. You thought maybe you were too difficult to love, too misunderstood to keep, too broken to stay connected with others. The loneliness became so heavy that some nights you questioned your own worth. You stared at the ceiling asking heaven why your life suddenly became silent while everybody else seemed surrounded by people, laughter, and support. But what you did not understand in that painful season was this: God was hiding you before elevating you. Heaven was removing distractions before revealing your destiny. The separation hurt because your human heart interpreted isolation as abandonment, but spiritually, isolation was preparation. God knew there were voices around you that would have poisoned the next version of yourself. Some people only loved the version of you that stayed weak, insecure, and easy to control. They were comfortable when you doubted yourself because your insecurity made them feel powerful. They liked you when you constantly needed approval, when you tolerated disrespect, when you carried everyone else's burdens while neglecting your own spirit. But the moment God started awakening something greater inside you, everything changed. Suddenly, why? Our presence disturbed people who once had easy access to your energy. The light inside you became too intense for people living comfortably in darkness. Chosen one, hear this carefully. Not everybody connected to you was assigned to your future. Some people were only attached to your old identity. They were connected to the wounded version of you, the confused version, the exhausted version, the version that did not yet understand its spiritual authority. And when God decided to transform you, those connections started breaking apart naturally. That is why the isolation felt so strange. Doors closed that you thought would remain open forever. Conversations became empty. Friendships lost their depth. Even people who promised they would never leave slowly disappeared from your path. But it was not because God hated you. It was because heaven was protecting the sacred transformation taking place inside your spirit. God knew you could not hear his voice clearly while surrounded by noise, distraction, drama, and emotional dependency. So he pulled you away from the crowd. He allowed the loneliness because isolation creates intimacy with God. In those silent nights when nobody answered your messages and nobody checked on your heart, heaven was teaching you something life-changing. God was teaching you how to survive without constant validation from people. He was teaching you how to find your identity in Him instead of in the opinions of others. That lonely room became holy ground. Those tears became prayers. Those sleepless nights became spiritual training sessions heaven was using to strengthen your soul. While others were distracted chasing temporary attention from the world, God was building endurance inside you. Every painful moment carried purpose. Every disappointment was separating you from something that could not enter your next season. Chosen one, some of the greatest transformations happen in hidden places. Seeds grow underground before anyone sees the tree. Gold is refined in fire before it shines. And spiritually, God often hides His strongest warriors before revealing them to the world, because hidden seasons create unshakable people. In your isolation, you learned discernment. You learned how to protect your energy. You learned how to sit alone without feeling empty. You learned that God's presence is stronger than human companionship, and so everything about you has changed forever. You walk differently because suffering matured your spirit. You no longer chase people who do not value your heart. You no longer beg to be understood. You no longer panic when people leave your life, because you finally understand that if God removes someone, there is always a reason connected to your destiny. Chosen one, your isolation was never your burial place. It was your spiritual womb. God was forming a stronger version of you away from the eyes of the world, and now the same people who overlooked you are beginning to sense the transformation. They feel the distance in your energy. They notice the peace in your spirit. They recognize that you are no longer emotionally fragile like before. Because when a chosen one survives isolation with God, they return carrying a power this world cannot explain. Chosen one, the pain you survived was never ordinary. There were wounds in your life that changed the way you saw the world forever. Some battles happened so deeply inside your soul that nobody around you even realized you were struggling. You smiled in front of people while carrying storms in your chest. You comforted others while secretly falling apart yourself. And the hardest part was not always the suffering itself. It was the feeling that nobody truly understood what you were carrying. There were nights when your heart felt unbearably heavy, nights where you cried silently because explaining your pain seemed impossible. You trusted people who betrayed you. You loved people who abandoned you. You gave your loyalty to those who only saw your value after losing access to you. And slowly, every disappointment began carving something deeper into your spirit. At first, you thought the pain was destroying you. You questioned why God would allow so much heartbreak into your life if you were truly chosen. You wondered why your prayers seemed delayed while your enemies appeared to prosper. But what you could not see during those dark moments was this. Heaven was using pain as a tool of awakening. God was allowing pressure to reveal the hidden strength sleeping inside your soul. Because before suffering entered your life, you saw people differently. You believed words too quickly. You ignored warning signs. You gave pieces of your spirit away without discernment. Your heart was pure, but your spirit was unguarded. And so, many times a chosen one must experience betrayal in order to develop spiritual vision. Pain became the teacher that opened your eyes. Suddenly, you started noticing energy instead of just words. You began sensing manipulation before it fully revealed itself. You became more careful about who enters your space because suffering taught you that not everybody deserves access to your heart. Chosen one, the enemy attacked you because he recognized your potential long before you recognized it yourself. Darkness does not waste time fighting empty souls. The strongest attacks are usually sent against people carrying divine purpose. The enemy saw your future influence, your spiritual strength, your ability to inspire and awaken others, and he wanted to break you before you discovered who you truly were. That is why your battles felt unusually intense. That is why your pain seemed heavier than what others could understand. But every attack that was meant to destroy you ended up strengthening you instead. Every betrayal sharpened your discernment. Every heartbreak deepened your connection with God. Every lonely night increased your spiritual endurance. And now, after everything you survived, our soul no longer moves the same way. There is wisdom in your silence now. There is caution in your trust. There is depth in your eyes that only suffering can create. Chosen one, pain transformed you into someone spiritually awake. You no longer chase temporary approval because you learned how quickly people can change. You no longer fear loneliness because isolation taught you how powerful God's presence truly is. You no longer depend on the world to validate your worth because suffering forced you to discover your identity through heaven instead of human opinion. And while others may see your transformation as distance or coldness, the truth is much deeper. You simply woke up. You became aware of spiritual warfare. You realized that not every smile carries pure intentions. You learned that some people are drawn to your light while secretly resenting your spirit. And now your energy has changed because your soul has matured through pain. The broken version of you would have tolerated things the awakened version of you will never accept again. The old version of you ignored red flags because you wanted to believe the best in everyone. But the new version of you understands that disc. Government is a gift from God. Chosen one, never hate yourself for becoming more guarded after everything you endured. Gold becomes stronger after surviving fire. Diamonds are formed under pressure. And spiritually, some of God's strongest warriors are created through seasons of suffering nobody else fully understands. Your pain gave birth to wisdom. Your wounds gave birth to discernment. Your heartbreak gave birth to spiritual authority. That is why your presence feels different now. People can sense the battles you survived without you speaking a single word. There is a quiet power surrounding you because pain awakens something ancient and unstoppable inside your spirit. And now the enemy fears you more than before because the suffering that was meant to break you ended up revealing who you really are. Chosen one, there was a time when you explained yourself too much. You tried to make everyone understand your heart. You kept giving people long explanations, endless chances, and access to parts of your soul they never truly valued. You believed that if you just spoke clearly enough, loved deeply enough, or proved your intentions strongly enough, people would finally understand who you really were. But instead, many misunderstood you anyway. Some twisted your kindness into weakness. Some took your silence as insecurity. Others only listened so they could judge, criticize, or use your vulnerability against you later. And after enough disappointment, something inside you changed forever. You became quieter, not because you lost your voice, but because God was teaching you the power of silence. Chosen one, silence is not emptiness. Silence is where transformation happens. It is where God rebuilds the spirit of someone who has been emotionally exhausted by the noise of the world. The old version of you felt the need to react to everything. Every betrayal demanded an explanation. Every misunderstanding felt like a battle you needed to win. Every false accusation tempted you to defend yourself immediately. But heaven slowly showed you something deeper. Not every attack deserves your response. Some battles are distractions sent to drain your energy and delay your purpose. And once you understood that truth, your spirit began evolving. You stopped arguing with people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped chasing closure from those who lacked the emotion, maturity to value your heart. You stopped begging to be seen by people spiritually blind to your worth. Instead, you became still. You became observant. You became spiritually disciplined. And in that silence, God started healing parts of you nobody else could reach. Chosen one, your silence became sacred because it separated you from emotional chaos. While others constantly spoke out of anger, pride, or insecurity, God was teaching you restraint. He was teaching you that real power does not always scream. Real power remains calm while storms rage around it. That is why you feel different now. Your energy no longer moves recklessly. You do not reveal every plan. You do not expose every emotion. You do not allow everyone access to your thoughts anymore. Because suffering taught you that your spirit is valuable and must be protected. The world misunderstands quiet people because silence exposes insecurity in others. Some people become uncomfortable when they cannot figure you out. They become nervous when they lose access to your emotions. They become frustrated when your peace cannot be manipulated. But chosen one, that silence was not weakness, it was spiritual maturity forming inside you. God was teaching you to observe before reacting, to discern before trusting, to listen more deeply to his voice instead of the noise surrounding you. And through that process, you became emotionally stronger than ever before. The version of you that once over-explained itself is gone. Now your presence speaks louder than unnecessary words ever could. People can feel your energy the moment you walk into a room. There is calmness around you now, but also mystery. There is peace in your spirit, but also authority, because silence sharpened your discernment. In quiet seasons, you started noticing things you once ignored. You began recognizing fake loyalty. You started sensing hidden jealousy behind forced smiles. You realized that not everyone celebrating around you was truly happy for your growth. And instead of confronting every betrayal immediately, you learned how to step back and let God reveal people's true intentions over time. Chosen one, silence gave you wisdom. It taught you that your energy should not be wasted trying to convince people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Jesus himself was misunderstood, rejected, and falsely judged, yet he did not spend his life desperately trying to prove himself to everyone. Sometimes silence is heaven's way of saying, I will defend you. You do not need to fight every battle yourself. And once that truth entered your spirit, something powerful awakened inside you. You stopped fearing people's opinions. You stopped needing constant approval. You stopped chasing validation from crowds that could never recognize your spiritual value anyway. Instead, you found peace in God's presence. That is why your silence unsettles certain people now. They remember the old version of you that reacted emotionally, explained endlessly, and carried everyone else's burdens. But the version standing before them now is different. This version is guarded by wisdom. This version chooses peace over chaos. This version understands that not everybody deserves an explanation. And deep down, your enemies can feel it. They can sense that your silence is no longer fragile or wounded. It is controlled power. It is spiritual confidence. It is the calmness of someone who has survived storms that should have destroyed them. Chosen one, never apologize for becoming quieter after everything you endured. Some souls become louder after our pain, but the strongest souls often become still. Because when God heals a chosen one in silence, that soul returns carrying a depth, a wisdom, and a spiritual authority the world cannot imitate. Chosen one, there was a moment in your life when everything seemed to collapse at once. The plans you carefully built started falling apart. Relationships you trusted began breaking without warning. Doors you prayed for suddenly closed in front of your face. And the more you tried to hold everything together, the more it felt like life was slipping through your fingers. You questioned yourself constantly. You wondered if you failed God. You wondered if you were being punished. Deep inside, you feared that maybe your story was ending in defeat. Because when a person loses stability, certainty, and emotional security all at the same time, it can feel like the entire world is crumbling beneath them. But chosen one, what felt like destruction was actually divine reconstruction. God allowed the fall because the version of you that existed before could not carry the destiny waiting ahead. Heaven had to break the false foundations you were standing on. Some of your confidence was built on opal instead of God. Some of your identity was attached to validation instead of purpose. Some of your peace depended on circumstances instead of faith. And because God loved you too much to let you remain spiritually fragile, he allowed everything unstable to shake. The collapse hurt because you were emotionally attached to things heaven had already decided could not follow you into your next season. Sometimes God removes comfort because comfort can hide weakness. Sometimes he allows disappointment because disappointment exposes where your faith truly lives. And in your lowest season, when you felt abandoned, confused, and emotionally exhausted, something powerful was happening inside your spirit. You were discovering strength you never knew existed. Before the fall, you did not fully understand your resilience. You underestimated the power God placed inside you. You thought you needed certain people to survive. You thought you needed constant reassurance, predictable outcomes, and emotional safety to remain stable. But once life stripped those things away, you discovered something terrifyingly powerful. God was enough. Chosen one, that revelation changes a person forever. Because when you survive the worst season of your life with only God holding your soul together, fear loses its control over you. The enemy thought pressure would destroy your faith, but instead pressure deepened your dependence on heaven. Every painful situation forced you closer to God. Every disappointment pushed you into deeper spiritual awareness. And while the world saw your breakdown, heaven saw your transformation. God was destroying the weaker version of you so a stronger version could rise. Think about who you were before the fall. You tolerated disrespect too easily. You ignored spiritual warning signs because you feared losing people. You sacrificed your peace trying to save relationships that drained your soul. You settled for environments that suffocated your spirit because familiarity felt safer than growth. But after the collapse, your eyes opened. Pain revealed truths comfort kept hidden. Suddenly you could see clearly. You realized that not everybody deserved access to your heart. You understood that some connections were assignments of distraction rather than destiny. You learned that protecting your peace is not selfish, it is spiritual wisdom. Chosen one, the fall street, ripped away illusions. It removed the mask from people around you. It exposed fake loyalty, hidden jealousy, and shallow love. And yes, the process wounded you deeply. There were moments you felt emotionally shattered beyond repair. Moments you cried alone asking God why everything had to hurt so much. But now, looking back, you can finally understand why heaven allowed the shaking. Because the old version of you was too dependent on things that could never truly sustain your soul. God wanted your foundation built on Him alone, and foundations built through suffering become unshakable. That is why your spirit feels different now. You carry a calmness that only surviving storms can create. You no longer panic the way you once did because life already pushed you to emotional rock bottom and God still carried you through it. The things that once terrified you no longer have the same power over your soul. Rejection no longer destroys your identity. Loneliness no longer convinces you that you are unloved. Delays no longer make you question God's plan. Because the fall taught you spiritual endurance. It taught you how to stand, even when life becomes painful and uncertain. Chosen one. Any people meet God in comfort, but the strongest souls encounter Him in brokenness. It is in the valley where faith becomes real. It is in suffering where spiritual authority is born. And now the person rising from your collapse is not the same fragile soul that entered the storm. This version of you has been refined by fire. This version walks with wisdom. This version carries discernment, emotional strength, and deeper intimacy with God. The enemy thought your collapse would be your funeral, but heaven transformed it into your rebirth. And now your survival itself has become proof that God was with you the entire time. Chosen one, your comeback is not random. It is not luck, coincidence, or accidental timing. What is happening in your life right now was written in heaven long before the battles ever reached your door. Before the betrayal, before the heartbreak, before the sleepless nights and silent tears, God already knew the ending of your story. The enemy believed he was destroying you, but he never realized he was only participating in a process heaven would later use for your elevation. Every attack against your spirit carried hidden purpose. Every storm was preparing you for a level of strength you could not have reached through comfort alone. And now, after everything you survived, something inside you is beginning to awaken again. You can feel it, a quiet shift in your spirit, a deeper sense of peace even in uncertainty, a strange confidence growing inside you after years of emotional warfare. Chosen one, that is not your imagination. That is the beginning of your divinely ordained comeback. God never abandoned you during your darkest season. Even when life became confusing and painful, heaven was still moving behind the scenes. While you cried over closed doors, God was protecting you from paths that would have destroyed your future. While you mourned relationships ending, God was removing people who could not walk with you into your next level. While you questioned your worth, heaven was preparing opportunities aligned with your true purpose. But the enemy wanted you blinded by pain. He wanted you to believe your suffering was permanent. He wanted you trapped in discouragement, convinced your story ended in defeat. Because if you ever fully realized how powerful your comeback would become, you would stop fearing the storm and start trusting God's process. Chosen one, your survival already proves that God's hand has been on your life the entire time. Think about everything that tried to break you. The betrayal should have hardened your heart permanently. The loneliness should have destroyed your faith. The disappointment should have crushed your spirit. The warfare surrounding your mind should have pushed you into hopelessness. But somehow, despite everything, you are still standing. Bruised, yes. Scarred, yes. But still breathing, still believing, still carrying light inside your soul. That is not ordinary strength. That is divine preservation. Because when God chooses someone for a higher purpose, even hell itself cannot permanently stop their destiny. The enemy can delay, distract, attack and wound, but he cannot cancel what heaven already ordained. And now the people who underestimated you are beginning to sense the shift. They can feel that something about you is changing. Your energy carries more authority now. Your spirit feels calmer, wiser, and emotionally stronger. You no longer beg for validation because suffering taught you who you truly are. You no longer chase temporary connections because God showed you the value of protecting your peace. You no longer collapse every time life becomes difficult because storms trained your spirit for endurance. Chosen one, your comeback is powerful because it was born through suffering. Anybody can smile during easy seasons, but only spiritually chosen souls can emerge from darkness carrying peace, wisdom, and faith stronger than before. That is why your testimony carries weight now. The pain did not destroy your kindness. The betrayal did not kill your ability to love. The hardship did not separate you from God. Instead, every battle deepened your spiritual maturity. Heaven used your suffering to build character the world cannot imitate. And now God is preparing to reveal what He created through your brokenness. Doors are about to open that once seemed impossible. Opportunities aligned with your purpose are beginning to move toward your life. Healing is entering areas of your soul you thought would remain wounded forever. Because when God restores a chosen one, the restoration always exceeds the pain they endured. What you lost will not compare to what heaven is preparing to release into your future. But first, God needed you to understand something. Deeply. Your value was never connected to the people who left you, rejected you, or failed to recognize your spirit. Your value came from heaven the entire time. And once you finally understood that truth, your soul became dangerous to darkness. Because a chosen one who no longer doubts their identity becomes unstoppable. Chosen one, this comeback season is sacred. It is the moment where your pain transforms into purpose. It is the moment where your scars become proof of survival instead of reminders of defeat. It is the moment where the same God who carried you through the fire begins leading you into elevation. And the beautiful part is this: the world has not even seen the strongest version of you yet. Chosen one, the world is about to witness what God created through your suffering. The version of you returning now is not the same person who entered the storm. That old version carried fear, uncertainty, emotional exhaustion, and hidden wounds nobody truly understood. But the person standing now has survived battles that should have destroyed them. You walked through heartbreak and still learned how to love. You faced betrayal and still protected the goodness inside you. You experienced loneliness so deep it felt like your soul was screaming in silence, yet somehow you kept praying, kept believing, and kept surviving. That is why your spirit feels different now. Suffering transformed you into someone stronger, wiser, and spiritually awakened. Chosen one, pain changed the way you see life forever. You no longer chase people the way you once did, because you finally understand that what is truly meant for you will never require you to destroy your peace to keep it. You no longer panic every time life becomes uncertain because you already survived. Seasons where everything collapsed around you and God still carried you through. You no longer fear rejection because heaven taught you that rejection is often divine redirection. The people who walked away were never holding your destiny in their hands. God was. And once you realized that truth, your soul stopped depending on the world for security. That is why your presence carries authority now. People can feel the difference when you walk into a room. There is a calmness surrounding you that did not exist before, not because life suddenly became easy, but because suffering forced your spirit to mat. You became emotionally disciplined. You learned how to protect your energy. You learned how to remain silent when others expected reactions. You learned how to trust God even when nothing around you made sense. Chosen one, those lessons created a power inside you darkness cannot easily manipulate anymore. The enemy fears healed people because healed people become dangerous to deception. Before your awakening, emotional wounds made you vulnerable to manipulation, fear, and attachment, but now your discernment has sharpened. You can sense dishonesty before it fully reveals itself. You can feel when environments drain your spirit. You can recognize when someone is connected to your destiny and when someone is only assigned to distract you. That spiritual awareness is part of your transformation. Heaven used suffering to open your eyes. And now the people who underestimated you are beginning to realize they no longer have access to the same version of you they once knew. The quiet person they ignored has become spiritually powerful. The wounded soul they expected to stay broken has become resilient. The person they thought would collapse under pressure has returned carrying peace, wisdom, and unshakable faith. Chosen one, this is why your comeback unsettles certain people. Deep down, they know they witnessed your darkest season. They saw you struggle. They saw you isolated. They saw you fighting battles silently. And yet, despite everything, you came back stronger instead of bitter. That confuses people who expected pain to destroy you. But what they do not understand is that God's strength becomes most visible through brokenness. Heaven often builds its strongest warriors in hidden places where nobody sees the process. And your hidden suffering became sacred training for the assignment attached to your life. Every tear strengthened your spirit. Every lonely night deepened your relationship with God. Every disappointment increased your discernment. Nothing was wasted. Even the seasons you thought were destroying you were secretly preparing you for this moment. Chosen one, your testimony is becoming proof that darkness cannot permanently defeat someone protected by God. That is why your survival carries spiritual weight. People are going to look at your life and wonder how you remained standing after everything you endured. They will not understand how your heart still carries compassion after betrayal, or how your soul still carries faith after so much pain. But that is because your strength no longer comes from human approval, temporary comfort, or worldly security. Your strength now comes from heaven. And when God becomes the foundation of a person's soul, that person becomes impossible to destroy completely. The enemy attacked you because your future carries influence. Your story was meant to awaken others trapped in fear, hopelessness, and spiritual darkness. Your survival is not only for you. It is a testimony for every broken soul who believes their pain is the end. Through your life, God is showing people that suffering can become transformation, that heartbreak can become wisdom, that isolation can become spiritual awakening. And now the strongest version of you is finally beginning to rise. Chosen one, never be ashamed of the scars you carry. Those scars are proof that you survived battles designed to destroy you. They are evidence that God kept you alive for a reason. And the beautiful truth is this: your story is only beginning. Chosen one, take a deep breath and hear this clearly. You did not survive all those battles just to remain small. God did not carry you through heartbreak, betrayal, loneliness, and spiritual warfare just for you to doubt yourself now. You were preserved for a reason. Every attack failed because your destiny is protected by heaven. And now the world is witnessing what happens when a broken soul places its trust completely in God. You came back stronger, wiser, more powerful, more spiritually awake than ever before. And the frightening truth for the enemy is this: you are only beginning. The next chapter of your life will carry blessings people never expected you to receive. Doors will open, healing will come, purpose will rise. And the same God who carried you through the fire will now lead you into your divine season of elevation. So stand tall, chosen one. Stop apologizing for your transformation. Stop shrinking your light. Stop doubting the power God placed inside you, because heaven already decided you were born to rise. If this message spoke to your spirit, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment, "God made me stronger." And remember, the comeback of a chosen one is never ordinary. It is supernatural.